Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. Our featured guest today is Dr. Patrice Berry. Dr. Patrice Berry is a licensed clinical psychologist with over 15 years of clinical experience. She provides outpatient therapy at her private practice, Four Rivers Psychological Services. She specializes in treating children, families, and adults with histories of trauma, adoption, depression, anxiety, and adjustment life stage issues. As a speaker, she provides educational training on mental health awareness, integrating faith and mental health, and the impact of racism of marginalized communities. She also provides educational information on social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, and LinkedIn. And is excited about the launch of her upcoming book that she says she's in a crunch for at this moment, Turning Crisis into Clarity, on July 24th. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you
Now,
so much.
when you were younger, did you think that you would be in the medical field?
So, not really. Really, I wanted to be an accountant. That was my first professional dream that I was really serious about as a child.
Now, when you say you wanted to be an accountant, so like where did that come from? Like why
My
did you
mom, yeah,
Oh,
my
she was an
mom
accountant.
is an accountant, and I was raised by a single mom, and she would work late. And I would help her balance budgets, or so I would sit there with my little calculator, and only if I wanted to. So she didn't make me do this, but if I helped out, we got to go home faster. So I would and I viewed it as a little game. So I was good at math. And so accounting, it seemed to make sense. But I really had a heart and a passion for helping people. And so that's where counseling ended up coming in.
I love it. Love it. Just to make sure that your mama didn't violate any child laws. Um, just
I could go, I could play, I could do whatever I wanted.
child labor
She
laws.
would,
We don't know the statute of limitations on that. What was something that shaped you deciding to go into psychology?
yes. So I ended up having a bad experience with a middle school guidance counselor while my mom and I were living over in Germany briefly. She worked for the government, and I had an interaction with the guidance counselor where she really didn't connect with me and asked some really personal questions without building a really good rapport. And I felt that if I had something going on at that time, that I probably wouldn't have told her. And so being able to work with kids and give them a safe space to talk is something that I really love to do.
I think that nurses, especially, nurses that work in the emergency department, like we have to deal with a whole lot of psychological issues. And
Yeah.
one thing that I've never grasped or never, I like it a little bit now because I understand it a little bit more. But when you first go into nursing, you're learning how to deal with the body, right? So when you walk in and you have a problem with your body per se, right? Like you're looking pale, you're not breathing, then I know, like that's very clear that something's wrong with you. But when you come in with psychological issues, you can't always tell that, right? And so sometimes it's a very hard thing to do. Now, what was the primary reason that you became a licensed clinical psychologist specifically?
I ended up volunteering at my church's counseling center when I was
Mhm.
in high school, and I was able to meet a Black male psychologist. And African Americans make up about 3% of the psychologists within the US. And I really saw it as a need. And I really enjoyed doing psychological testing. That's the big thing that makes me different from a master's level therapist, that I'm able to do that psychological testing and sit down with somebody for about 3 to 4 hours. And at the end of that, I can really get a lot of good information that can help. Where people have sat down to read their report, after the eval, and they're like, wow, I can't believe you really get what's going on with me, things that maybe they couldn't even put into words. And so that's where I wanted to become a psychologist. Briefly, I considered becoming a psychiatrist, but I don't do all the things nurses do. I don't like the blood. And so psychiatrists, they go on to medical school, and that really wasn't something that I wanted to do.
Oh, okay, I got you. So the difference is the psychiatrist is more medicine based, I
Yes.
guess. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, gotcha. Now, what are some of the problems that you help people solve as a result of being a licensed clinical psychologist?
Especially with everything going on with COVID and everything, a lot of people are struggling with anxiety, depression, and I really like to break the stigma related to mental health that people don't go to therapy because they're quote unquote crazy. They go to therapy because they've run out of resources, they've run out of tools, and they're needing some extra support. I have an approach where I partner with the people that I'm working with to try to help them work through whatever it is that they're going through. I also work with people that have been adopted or people that have experienced some negative life events pretty early on, just in working through whatever nightmares or whatever issues that they're still dealing with now.
So adoption, that's interesting. So specifically, so now what was the drive behind adoption?
I worked for a community based agency for about 15 years, and a lot of our referrals would come from social services.
Mhm.
And some of them would be I helped clients work towards adoption. I would step in. Sometimes there would be an adoption that was at risk of not being successful. And I also did supervised visitation. And really, it was seeing some of the severe behaviors and emotions and issues that would come up for kids that had been adopted. It was just something that I really just enjoyed working with that population. I work with some adult adoptees that still, even into adulthood, there are some aspects, there are some things that they are still working through, and it's just giving them a safe space and validating I get why relationships might be difficult, or I get why you might be having some of these issues. Here, this is what's common within adoption, and I commonly see issues of grief or shame, issues of loss, issues around identity, and then also issues around just control, struggling sometimes with always wanting control.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I can imagine that, they would have issues of not feeling like they're wanted, right?
Yeah.
And feeling like,
Yeah.
I can't, of course I've never dealt with anything like that, but I can certainly see that. Now, what are some of the tips in finding a right therapist for you?
One of the biggest things is being able to make sure that the person can help you with what you want to work on. And often therapists will have online profiles where they will say, I work with anxiety, I work with these different things, and it's partnering with the right person. You typically know within the first 2 to 3 sessions if somebody's the right fit. For me, my first therapist was not right for me. We just didn't click, and it wasn't anything wrong with her. It wasn't the right fit. And it took me a while to try again before I attempted to find a therapist again. But I'm so glad that I did. And I partnered with the right person. And it was a person that specialized in exactly what I wanted to talk about. There are lots of different directories. Psychology Today is one of the famous ones. But then there's also for communities of color, there's therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men, and then also inclusivetherapist.com. For some people, finding a therapist that matches some of their different identities is important for them.
Oh, I got you. So if it's a black girl, then a black girl, white girl, white girl.
And and not that it has to be that match. My
Uh-huh.
therapist was a white man, and that was right for me. But for some people, they're feeling more comfortable working with a certain type of therapist. And so this at least gives you people that are culturally aware and that are going to provide a safe space, hopefully, in session.
Yeah, I think that that's truly, truly important because I can see that, if I can't identify with you, then I can't, you don't know my world, right? And if you don't know my world, then you can't, in my opinion, I wouldn't feel like now I feel, of course, I have a broader mindset as it relates to that. But at the time, when I was not in this space, I would have felt that you didn't have the mindset in order to be able to understand where I came from. So yeah, I love it. I love it. So now, what would you tell someone that is struggling with insecurities? Interesting.
Wow. And I have a chapter on imposter syndrome and overcoming self sabotage. So,
Ah,
insecurity is sometimes related to feeling like everybody else is better than you. And people have to be careful on social media. So, I'm a content creator on social media, and I have to protect my own mental health online because if I'm comparing myself to other creators and sometimes people do it negatively. So often insecurity is seeing that everybody else is better and what you're not. And often you're not appreciating who you are and what you do have. And a tip that I would give is some people struggle with affirmations. And so I just learned about a thing called affirmations, where you add what if in front of a statement. So instead of I am loved or I am beautiful, to say, what if I'm loved? What if I'm beautiful? And it just has this different, because some people, they're really low and they're really struggling. So to say I am beautiful, they would not, they'd be like, nope, I'm not. I can't even say that. But to say, what if I'm beautiful? That might be something that they're more comfortable doing.
so if they say, "What if I'm beautiful?" So play that out. What if I'm beautiful? And then that's it.
And that's it. And then your brain starts to look for, well, what if? It's more of a curious, instead of saying I am in the person's subconscious mind or their conscious mind saying, no, you're not. So to say, I am smart, and the person does not feel smart at all. But what if I'm smart? It kind of opens that door to the possibility. It's not this black or white thing. I either am or I'm not, but I'm looking for pieces of that. And it was just something that I saw recently that I really connected with. Because for some people, affirmations work great. So putting their I am statements on their mirror or saying their affirmations every morning, that is very helpful for them. I have also worked with people that could not, would not. I would give them a list of affirmations and they were like, nope, Dr. Barry, none of that is true. And they just couldn't get on board with it.
That's interesting. That's very interesting to know because, of course, I'm a Proverbs girl, and so I believe that the power of life and death in the tongue, right? And one of the things that I heard, and it just kind of changed the way that I looked at things, was that whenever you have an insecurity, then it is something that's already deep rooted, and you don't think that it's deep rooted. You don't think that you have a problem with it because you have not brought it to your conscious, but it is in your subconscious, right? And
Yes.
so, like if you told me my hair was green, I'd be like, yeah, my hair ain't green. But whatever you think, you colorblind. But if you say that my hair is gray, I'd be like, anybody ask you that? But ask you nothing at all. Because that's something that I know. Now that's in my conscious, but in my subconscious, there's some things that you don't even realize that you struggle with. And if it makes you mad, then I promise you, if it elicits a reaction, then there's something to it.
I totally agree, and we're not going to parenting, but especially with parenting, the things that really get parents their blood boiling, it's often related to their own stuff. It's not necessarily related to what that child is doing in that specific moment.
That's true. That's true. You're so right. You're so right. So now, as a content creator, I was interested in answering this question. What is creator mental health?
I love this because when people create content, they are being vulnerable. They are putting themselves out there. People might like it, people might hate it. For me, a lot of my content that does really well, sometimes there will be some negative comments on it. And the thing that I do to protect my own mental health is if it's just an off the wall comment from somebody who's not even following me, I just delete it. For because some people go back and forth. And so I don't give trolls any oxygen. I just cut it off. And I've never had somebody come back, because often they're just scrolling and they make a little nasty comment and then they move on. There are times that when people are creating that they may not feel like creating, or they might be in a negative headspace. They might have some imposter syndrome too, where they're looking at what other people are doing and thinking, well, I'm not this or I'm not that. And so once again, being able to appreciate and have some gratitude about where you are and what you do have and the tools that you have, I think that can really help when people are putting content out there.
One of the things that helped me as it relates to putting content out there is a book by Brene Brown. It's called The Power of Vulnerability, and that really, really helped me because a lot of times you want to be vulnerable enough because although you see us as Dr. Patrice Berry and Dr. Viola Pierce, we ain't always been Dr. whatever, right? We were Patrice and Viola at one point in time, right? And the reality, and we're still Patrice and Viola, right? But the reality is that we came from this place where we were not where we are now. And sometimes people can't relate to us until, I tell you that I didn't start out like this. I mean, I started out poor, right? I mean, we lived in the country. I used the bathroom in an outhouse. I mean, these are the things that happened. Although it was not common practice all the time, it was just something that happened. My parents didn't graduate from high school, and so because of that, it brings them. It doesn't give other people an excuse, right? It doesn't give you the excuse because I remember thinking about Oprah, right? And thinking about the fact that she didn't come from money, right? And because she didn't come from money, and I remember going back and looking at her story, thinking, well, let me find out what happened to her. How did she come into the world? What happened? What gave her the leverage when it really was just her continuation to? She always knew that she would, and success is 80%. It's 80% psychology and 20% skill set, and so that thing just changed my world. And so it really changed how I looked at things. So I love that. Now, tell me, what is a book that has impacted you and why was it so impactful?
You mentioned Brene Brown, and I absolutely love her work. But a book that really impacted me, Miles Monroe does a ton of books on purpose. And I used to read a lot of his different books. From an early age, I sought out my purpose, and purpose isn't a destination, it's a bit of a journey, because what I thought along the way, 2 years ago, I did not want to start a private practice. Really, everything that happened in 2020 was what pushed me to really launch into what's ultimately, I'm able to walk out my purpose and destiny even greater with the control of working for myself. And I didn't know that for sure until I really stepped out and did that. And so Miles Monroe, anything by Dr. Miles Monroe on purpose.
I love that you said that your purpose is not a destination, because I remember going down to the emergency department and my story is that this girl, she was pregnant. She was a young girl. She was pregnant. She ended up having a seizure, and I was a med surg nurse at the time. So going down to the emergency department, and I thought I was an LPN at the time, and I knew that I had to get my RN if I wanted to even, work in the emergency department. But she fell out on the floor. She had a seizure, and I thought, and then the way that they handled it, I was like, these
Mhm.
are my people. And then, literally I spent, 25 years at the bedside. And then I knew that that was no longer my purpose. Right. And I knew that going into business for myself and helping other nurses pivot into business was something that I wanted to do. So yes, it is definitely a destination. Now tell us a person that has impacted your life and why were they so impactful?
I have a really good relationship with my mom. I actually have a podcast, Legacy Moments, that I do with
Okay.
with my mom, and she is a huge inspiration. And she wrote the foreword in my book, and we have a really good relationship. And seeing her, and the one thing, she always gave me a voice growing up. Uh, And she always let me, no matter what, she let me know that I had value and that I had worth and that there was nothing that I could ever do for her to not love me. And so my mom is somebody that has really impacted my life. She is a businesswoman. She has a long laundry list of all the amazing things that she has done. And but yeah, she's been a huge inspiration. And she's actually my accountant now. She's an accountant. She is because
That's
she's
super good.
yep, yep. And she gives me the family and friends discount. Like I pay her, but like I don't pay her what she's worth. I'm sorry, mama.
That's too funny. That's too funny because you were talking about being a psychologist. Do I have your credit card information?
Credit card, insurance. How are we working this out?
I love it. Now, where can the audience find you?
I am at Dr. Patrice Berry on all platforms. I really enjoy creating content on TikTok, and then I'm also on YouTube and Instagram. So those are great ways to contact me. And then I have a link tree on Instagram or TikTok that just has some other resources and ways people can find me.
Yeah, TikTok. You're really big on TikTok. So, how many followers do you have on TikTok?
Almost 25,000, which
Oh my
blows
God.
my mind because when I started TikTok, I did not think that it would get to that point. I actually had a video of my son on it before I hit, I think, 2,000 or 5,000. And I was like, oh my, like this might actually do something. Whoa. Uh-oh. I think people like this content. So I put it out there because I want to help. And so that's something I do for my own mental health is if I like the video, I don't get caught up in the analytics. Some videos that I love have about 200 views. And then some videos that I just threw out there like, hey, let's see how this does. That one might get 70,000 views. And it doesn't make any sense. And I don't try to understand it. As long as one person is impacted, I am so happy with that. And I've also had people come back to my page and say, because of the content on mental health TikTok, I reached out to find a therapist. I talked with my therapist about that issue because sometimes people don't know, hey, if you don't like something your therapist is doing, if your therapist is always late, if your therapist seems distracted, like you can ask, hey, so this is what I'm noticing. Like you can bring that up. You're paying for that time. You can definitely bring that up. And then we talk about some red flags of like, yeah, your therapist is talking about their own problems. Maybe that's not the right person for you. That's not
I
good.
have when my husband and I first got married, one of the things that we worried about because my parents have been married for 62 years and his mom passed away when he was younger, but his dad was married for a long time to this lady. And one of the things that we struggled with was how we were going to deal with a blended family. And we went to this therapist for it. And the therapist, like you said, he was just talking about himself all the time. And I was like, okay, I need to tell you about me so you can help me with me because that's what we're here for, right?
Oh my gosh. And that's so talking about blended families, because my dad and my stepmom, I have two brothers and a sister, and blended families, people co-parenting and doing those types of things. Those are things that I also work with people on when we're able.
Yes, yes, it can be very interesting. I think if everyone just tries to get along, then it would be great, but there's some deep-seated stuff going on there
It really can
sometimes.
be.
So we have just finished our BP Nursing Business Academy 4-day masterclass. So first of all, before we go into that, I want to know where we can find your book.
And so it will be at mindyourlegacy.com on July 10th. It will be available for pre-order. It launches on July 24th. Thank you so much.
Okay, so mindyourlegacy.com. And
Yes.
then July 10th, which is Saturday, it will be available.
For
July.
pre-order, and then July 24th, it actually will be available on Kindle. And then for the hard copy, people can purchase from the website.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right. So now we have just finished our VP Nursing Business Academy 4-day master class. It's a phenomenal event. You still have time to sign up for the business. The last day actually is today. And jump on a call so that you're able to gain clarity on how to create multiple streams of income. You can sign up at vpnursing.com. I ask that you like and share this podcast. And just know that Morning Infusion with Dr. V is where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders such as Dr. Patrice Berry, who is phenomenal, that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.